All right, so essentially, Tom Cruise went on stage, or he went on for an interview, and he mentioned the Church of Scientology. After that, there was more and more scrutiny put on the Church of Scientology. There was also borderline criminal things that they were engaging in, and like their history in the past with sketchy political connections. I don't want this to get like taken down by the Church of Scientology or anything, but there's some really sketchy stuff in their past. And 4chan kind of basically there was this whole like campaign on 4chan where people would fax black pieces of paper to their workplace and like any office building that was connected with the Church of Scientology until their printer ink was completely out. It would wipe out their toner. People would send pizza boxes. They would order all types of deliveries straight to the Scientology like headquarters in the areas. It was a mess, and it was all organized on 4chan. There was like a whole meme campaign. That was when Anonymous became like a big thing. Used the Guy Fawkes mask from V for Vendetta, started a movement, and that was the start of the internet hacking stuff that you see in like the media nowadays, where it's always some like faceless organization. In reality, it was like a group of maybe like 400 or 500 people on 4chan that were just really bored and really wanted to stick it to the man, and the man happened to be Tom Cruise because he got really upset at South Park.
What do you think your favorite early moments spent on the internet were?
In terms of a personal thing, it was probably the first time that I successfully pirated an album in full. I believe it was Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park. I was really into Linkin Park because my cousins had shown me it. They got into it because of like Dragon Ball Z or something. Like it was in every AMV at the time. I remember calling my cousins on like the landline and being like, oh my god, you won't believe what I just did. I downloaded the entire album. They were like, that's great. We've been doing this for years. Do you want like a cookie or something? In terms of like real standout moments of like actually using the internet and connecting with people, it was probably the first time I like direct messaged someone and I realized that there was like, wow, I'm talking to someone that is in a completely different place than me, like a pen pal, but this is happening instantaneously, and it's not charging the house anything because it's not like a text. I don't want to sound like an internet boomer, even though I'm very young on the scale, but nowadays it's like, oh yeah, I just send out a text, that's normal. But like when I was a kid, the only frame of reference I had was like, oh, I can send an email, but this isn't an email, this is like a letter, but it's in their phone, but it's not their phone, it's their laptop. Like it was wild to me. This is miles ahead of what I thought I would be doing. I'm here right now. I look like a droid from Star Wars, and I am standing on a balcony. If you told me that this would be my experience, like I'm moving my hand and it's actually doing something. In 2006, when I like first stumbled onto Newgrounds, I would think that you were smoking crack. There's no way that I would believe you. When I was really young, I was given a computer, and my dad basically walked me through how to use it. Really early 2000s, I think we were still using dial-up at that point, so you'd have to hear that horrible whining noise, and someone picked up the phone, it would kill the internet. Took about like 2 minutes to load a web page. I was basically just given complete unrestricted internet access. Yeah, that was the start of a horrible, horrible thing. I was about 4 or 5, somewhere around there. I was given the don't talk to any strangers online, stay out of weird groups of people, but at this time it was also like my parents were old, they didn't really know how the internet works. I started getting into memes. At the time they were called like macros, no one really used memes. So I was just browsing like meme sharing websites, but at that time it was like demotivational posters, the startings of advice animals, like that type of like really, really old impact font, top text, bottom text, like that type of like meme. And it was mainly like just me going through there, laughing at photos of cats and stuff that I thought was funny, showing it to kids at school. And then slowly the gap between me and my classmates started getting wider and wider as I went deeper in, and they were no longer laughing at the jokes because they couldn't get them. And I was slowly realizing that I was becoming very weird. I still remember the first time that I heard the word meme used in real life, and it threw me off guard. I still remember the day that my dad used the word meme. He pronounced it wrong, and I was like, ooh, that doesn't sound good in real life. He said may, and I was like, ooh, that sounds horrible. It's crazy seeing how like something that at the time I would only consider like oh yeah, the cool kids are talking about memes online, and they're part of like this underground culture, like fighting back against Gmail and like Yahoo News. Nowadays it's just like a normal thing. Back in the day it was like a dorky, nerdy thing that if you mentioned it was, you just got weird looks. I used to use You're the Man Now, dude. There was also E-Bombs World, mess around the Newgrounds, and there's another one for, oh, Something Awful Forums. Definitely not the best way to like get introduced to 4chan, but I was young and I was curious and I was exploring the internet, and someone linked a Newgrounds Flash animation by a prolific artist. It was very popular with a type of explicit work environment. And someone in the comments of the posts posted like a 4chan link. It was like 4chan /f/ and it was the full thing. And I was like, whoa, no way. And then I don't need to pay for their weird subscription in early 2000s internet where everything is sketchy as hell. So I clicked on it, I went on the website, and I saved that link to my Internet Explorer bookmarks, and I would go back there over and over again to the page.
Just to be clear, it was porn.
Yes, it was 100% porn. I clicked and I was like, whoa, this is weird. This is a different layout. It's all words, and it's not a dark theme. It's a really, really bright reddish yellow theme. I think I spent like a week trying to figure out how the site worked. And then once I started to get the hang of it, I just lurked there for a few years, just browsing through threads, going through whenever. Eventually I kind of found a place there. Just kind of pretended to fit in until I did. Every week I would go on the website and I would be like, what is the rest of this web? Like I would click on it. The link had already 404'd because I think it got taken down. But the rest of the website was like a wild west for me. Like I was like, whoa, what are all these different boards and like features? And so I started going on other ones, and I unbookmarked the first one because it did not look good in the search history. I started bookmarking the rest of like every one of my interests, like music. So I got really deep into like what music was being listed and like infographics on like, hey, if you like this, you'll like this. And my taste got really niche. I was like the only kid in middle school listening to heavy industrial, and like to this day I open Spotify and I like go to make a playlist, and the first thing it recommends to me is In the Aeroplane Over the Sea to add to my playlist. That's like essential like Mew core, and it was just like the start of a bunch of different things. I was playing obscure video games that were like only available in Japan because somebody recommended it to me after I started like Silent Hill. I was really edgy, so 4chan was the only place that could tolerate me. I just like the idea of having like no username to connect me to my random shitposting babble, or like, you know, the whole lack of a name was really a big thing for me. And it was just a lot of shitposting and banter, but it's kind of different now. In the earlier days of the internet, before social media really got into the beast that it currently is, forums were like the way that the internet interacted, and they were early ways to communicate. 4chan was one of the image boards that sprung up, inspired by Japanese forum culture. There were only a few like topics in the beginning. The different boards had basically like different genres of stuff that you could go on. And as time went on, the website expanded. There were all different types of topics. I was a really bored kid, and I had a lot of free time. I was at home. Wasn't really in touch with friends because I was busy after school with other responsibilities. I sat behind the computer, tweedle my thumbs and fingers, typing, yelling insults at people online. I keep seeing the banner ads that are saying like, hey, we could use a janitor or two, or janitor applications are going out. And I was like, oh, I might as well do this, right? Might as well like make the website that I'm browsing better with my presence. And then I found out that you had to be like legally 18, and I was very much not legally 18 at all. So I faked my credentials. I pretended to be my dad, sent in all fake paperwork like all of my information was my father's. They were like, yeah, you're good to go, I guess. This was before they had like way more stringent rules around the whole janitor process. They didn't check to see if you were like a criminal or anything, which now that I think about it, they probably should have. I 100% would imagine that they do that nowadays, especially because of like the sentiment that 4chan gets on the internet, especially with like history and like the cultural significance of 4chan always being like this lawless place where illegal stuff goes on. Janitors are basically unpaid moderators that have nothing better to do. So they call them janitors on 4chan because they kind of sanitize the website and keep it from like getting filled with spam and people that post shit that's not related to threads or just stuff that's typically not accepted on the board. It's like the first layer of defense besides like the users that report content on the website. You could also see stuff that's like terms and service breaking, like you have to report this to the authorities because this was just posted on the website and it is super illegal. But I submitted an application, I got accepted, and we messaged through a messaging client. It would jump in between like Skype groups, like really old chat clients, and like IRC. Think of like AOL, like that type of. Oh, I don't know if that's too dated. What's a good compare? Think it's like proto Discord, like pre-TeamSpeak without the gaming part. They sort of give me like a URL, and I go on the URL, put in some credentials, and then I can flag stuff for people that are spamming, people that are avoiding bans. I still remember like finding out that hyperzoom, which is like that thing where you put your cursor on like on a photo and it like expands it huge. I remember the first time that I like hovered over something that was very clearly illegal and I did not want to see bigger, and it hovered over and it made it massive on my screen, and I immediately was like swiping away at the screen screaming. And some of the people there were like genuinely nice, but there were also a lot of like, I don't want to say weirdos because I was definitely one of the weirdos, but there were some weirdos. There's illegal stuff being posted on the website. There's definitely one of the people in here that's saving it from the website and flagging it and just saving it before they delete it. Most of those people got phased out, usually. They made it through like the screening, and then like a week into their tenure or whatever, their position kind of got cut. I'm just going to use like a random example, like, oh, you specifically just keep like downloading photos of stuff that is very questionable, and it keeps flagging that you keep downloading it from your IP. We're going to have to let you go. One of the hard parts about 4chan is, because it's completely anonymous, you have people that post stuff that's just illegal. If things were operating as planned, they were gone in like minutes of being posted online, but sometimes they stuck. But there were definitely some people that were really nice and really not nice. Or there were also like the really kind of weird people, because I'm not gonna lie, if you are unpaid moderating 4chan, something is very wrong. And they ask you like, oh, how many hours do you usually like spend? How many hours do you have free? They give you a choice of like, what board do you want to, you know, be working on. A board is basically, you have a forum, and in a super generic classification, a forum would be like, people just talk about whatever. A board is a subsection of the website where you can only talk about stuff that has to do with a certain topic, going from like random to like super in-depth stuff like papercraft and like cars and all that stuff. Stuff that's off topic gets removed from the forum. On 4chan, it's janitors, mods, or admins that are in charge, depending on what gets removed. Every topic imaginable you can imagine, you've got a board for it. They were like, what board do you want to moderate? And I was like, oh, you know, if I really want to make a difference, I'll go on the random board. I'll go on B. Even though I really like the anime board, and I really like the weapons board, and the comics board, which I think at that point was new, and I really thought I'd be able to make a difference. I think I did for about 2 weeks, and then it just completely bogged me down, and I realized that I was not doing much. Alright, I never really viewed it as like there were opinions that I didn't want to see out or anything like that, just because I've always been like I was always like a free speech absolutist. So I was never for like the stringent like, oh, I'm going to ban this person because they said something I don't like. Even though sometimes it was really funny watching someone get banned for like saying that another person's anime character was worse than theirs. I was never really of that idea. I wanted to like actually sanitize the board, because you would see people that would come in and they would spam threads with the same reaction image there would be constant like arguments about the same exact threads, 5 threads of the same thing going on at once. And it was just tiring to open up the website one day and just see like nothing has changed. It's the same thing. The same 5 people are still arguing about the same 5 different things, and they don't know that they're still arguing with the same people. Like if you put the same people in a room in real life, they would realize like, oh, we've been arguing for 6 months and it's literally just us, like just us 2. You would have people that would come in every single day like clockwork, and they would argue with each other. So if I argue to you like, oh, cats are better than dogs, and you send a message as a response like, fuck you, no, I will kill you, and you send it under your main computer, and then you send the message from your laptop at like school or something, I would think, oh, there's 2 people that are saying the same exact thing. I wouldn't think like, oh, it's the same guy. I would think like, oh, there's a group of them out to get me. It would snowball into 2 people completely shitting up a thread because someone mentioned that like Asuka from Evangelion is better than Rei. You would have that board. You would go on during the hours that you said you'd be free, and you'd flag anything that stuck out as illegal. It basically was just a scanning job. I think that at this point they've replaced it mostly with machines that just put it through an algorithm. Back in the day, it was like you needed actual people doing it. There was no algorithm for sorting out like wiener pics. There was no algorithm for that. I guarantee there's one now running on the website. Back in the day, it was like you needed a person to like sit down and constantly refresh the page looking at new threads, flagging them, and then a moderator would take care of it. Or it would get sent up, and it would get sent to law enforcement, and the person's IP would be sent out as well as what was posted on the website. There would be moments of like extreme traffic where the board was moving so fast that you had 8 people on the board at the same time refreshing the main page. In the summer, the majority of the day would be active after like 12, because I'm going to assume that every high schooler that was edgy was on 4chan at that time because there was no school. You were an unpaid mod. It's like a janitor on 4chan has like the same clout as like being a Discord moderator nowadays. Yeah, the connotations were not positive. It was very negative. I remember the first Chris-chan threads that were going around. People first discovered like, hey, there's this one guy, he's obsessed with Sonic, he has a Sonic webcomic. We found that he has a YouTube channel, let's all brigade it. I still remember typing some really, really mean comments and him responding to them in a YouTube video. And that was like a highlight. I was like, oh my god, Chris-chan responded to me after I called him mean names on the internet. This is a crowning achievement. And now I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, definitely not a proud moment that I don't mention to normal people, but it's one that I look back on and I'm like, that happened. Most of the stuff that I remember, and I remember fondly, it wasn't stuff that I was personally interacting with. It was stuff that I was like in the room for. Like when Slender Man became like a huge cultural phenomenon, I was on the ground floor. I was like in the Something Awful threads, shit posting, adding on to discussion. I was interacting with people like who were writing stories about it. Eventually I knew people that were like making web series. I got close with some of them. I made very, very lifelong friends from that group of people. Then eventually it got picked up by like the mainstream media and stuff like that. Eventually in 2014 some kids like stabbed another person because of it, or like blame that on it. And then there was a movie made and I'm like, wow, I was there. It's kind of like being there when like the wheel was first invented. You're like, whoa, people are still using that like 2,000 years later. That's how I look at like, oh wow, that one 5th grader just drew a little sketch of Slender Man and put it up on the fridge. There's definitely one thing that I forgot to mention, cryptocurrency. I missed out on that by a lot. People on the 4chan tech board were raving about it, Bitcoin specifically. People were like mentioning cryptocurrency and I was really interested in it. I was like, whoa, what? It's like the secret money, like black market stuff that you could buy on Silk Road, like that type of stuff. I found that you could mine it at home, so I used my really, really bad laptop. Eventually I had a veritable amount. I think I had like 30 Bitcoin, which I don't want to search up the exchange amount in US dollars for. And I ended up spending some of it when I went out of state because I found out that there was a place that was selling pizza and you could buy the pizza with Bitcoin. It might have been 12 Bitcoin on a pizza slice. Not my finest moment. And then the rest of it got hacked in a massive data breach because I just did not know what was going on. I never was interested in compensation, and I just never got the money back. This was also when Bitcoin was like less than $1, so people were dumping like $500 into Bitcoin and then using that Bitcoin to make a drug purchase. You win some, you lose some. Sometimes you're there for Slender Man being born. Sometimes you lose $1 million. When I was casually browsing the website, I was, even to this day, I'm pretty desensitized to it. I was growing up on like Vescore and like Rotten.com. I don't know if these are like familiar things. The live leak of the late 90s, early 2000s, like those equivalents, because they were like shock sites. People would send like a photo of a really gory thing to someone else through their email as like a ha, gotcha. And that was like considered like the cool thing to do if you were like an edgelord. Out of morbid curiosity, I would go on the websites and browse through. So when I was older, by older I mean like maybe 3 years older than that, still very, very young and impressionable, I was a janitor on 4chan, and I was seeing that stuff every day. The level at which it kept coming up, like the prevalency of wake up, go on computer, see decapitated body, day ruined, turn off computer, turn on computer next day, repeat. It was like that every single day, seeing the same stuff. It was just like a meat grinder of like crime scene photos and like horrible, horrible stuff. And there was a point where I was looking at something which was very, very violent in nature, and I was like, I don't feel anything looking at this. This is definitely starting to mess with me. Not only was it violent, but it was also breaking site rules. So I was like, this is horrible. But I just immediately noticed, like, I have no reaction to this whatsoever. Emotionally. Something is definitely wrong. I flagged it, and the next day I continued to work, and it just kept creeping at the back of my mind, like, I need to stop doing this and find something else to do. It was the equivalent of like a touch grass moment where I was like, I need to go outside and like pet a dog. It definitely brings out some of the worst in people when you give them a mask and allow them to post whatever they want with a very, very limited set of rules. Even though I love the concept of a complete Wild West, even in this day and age of like whatever you post on the internet is whatever. The warning signs of the really, really bad stuff that can happen were definitely there at the beginning. Even to this day, you see people like, I don't want to make this like really real and heavy, but you see like acts of violence like the other day in Buffalo or a few years back in New Zealand. And I look at those people and I'm like, I recognize where these people are coming from. I'm not saying that I empathize, but I know they have logged in every single day on a image board where everyone on it is screaming the worst shit, spewing the worst shit, spewing insane conspiracy theories. They're painting as like a, oh, it's memeing. You can see like exactly how far it can affect someone to the point that they're willing to do extreme acts of violence, and at the same time reference like meme videos from like the early 2010s. It's really weird seeing stuff that's like soberingly real and like very, very negative, and being able to like plot it back to, I probably got in an argument with that guy at some point. I don't know if that's too heavy. You surround yourself with people that are constantly edgy, trying to one-up themselves on the scale of edginess. It's kind of like that meme where it's like, wait, you guys are actually racist? I thought racism was just a joke here. People are one-upping themselves to the point that they are actually engaging, and they start drinking the Kool-Aid. There's like the whole Poe's Law thing where you make a joke enough times to new people, they won't be able to tell, and they'll sort of agree. Complete tonal shift, but the same type of message applies. People unfortunately started joking about liking My Little Pony as a show, like the whole, oh, we're watching a show for little girls, and then it actually got traction. People were watching it seriously, and they were taking it like a step further. A whole fan base formed around it. They started making their own threads, they got their own board, and like a really, really weird fan base. But back in the day, that was crazy stuff. Like, that was a joke that went 3 steps too far and became a real thing. So I can see how people would make extremely edgy jokes pertaining to extreme subject matter, and it snowballs into an act of actual violence, and them quoting it in like a manifesto. And you see like the same language in meme culture. I hate to use the word dog whistle, but you see the same dog whistles in it, and you're like, oh no, this is the conversations that I was interacting with when I was younger. I could have ended up like down that pipeline if I just kept watching fringe YouTubers with strange political beliefs. Yeah, I had a lot of stuff going on in my head when I was younger, especially when I was on 4chan. I was a kid. Like, kids were worrying about way different stuff than I was worrying about in my head that age. I can't imagine what my life would be like without being exposed to that part of the internet. It is such a major part of what has affected the way that I not only view the world and interact with the world, but me as a person, that I don't know if I could even separate it from me, because it's just so deeply rooted in me. I can't separate who I am now from my interactions with the internet at that early age, just because I am who I am now based on that. Regrets? Probably getting the janitor position. That was really stupid and irresponsible. I have a lot of regrets because of it. I saw stuff that I wasn't supposed to at a very young age. I was exposed to a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to at a very young age. In terms of personal regrets, probably some stuff that I said online when I was younger. Some people I bullied. I was mean to a lot of people. I know it's part of like growing older, realizing like the stuff that you did when you were younger is wrong, but I was a little bit too harsh to a lot of people just because I wanted to be mean and edgy and like fuck the system, you know, I'm just gonna be rude because I can be. And when the shitposting wears off, you sort of realize the people that you've pushed away were way closer than you thought. Like, there's a lot of experiences and bridges that there's been a lot of bridges that I've burned because I was a little shithead on the internet. And looking back, they were completely preventable, and I probably would have been better off not burning those bridges. I think one time I posted my address online too. That was a big bruh moment. Oh wow, this is gonna be really stupid. I was playing Roblox in 2009. Someone said to hit me up on Skype, or like hit them up on Skype. We had been playing for a while. Sent them my username. My username had my real name linked to it. They searched up my real name on Facebook, found out where I lived because of like tagged photos from family, and then they went to my account information, like the about page. And this is during the time period where people would just casually in their Facebook put their actual phone number and actual address. I was a complete dumbass who was only using Facebook for family members and friends, and I never interacted with like other people on the internet. I never connected my real identity to it, so I didn't even think that it would happen. And they just copied the address and posted it on B. I remember for like a week I was like, oh my god, someone's gonna mail me like a bomb. I'm gonna get anthrax in the mail. What actually happened was one person sent me a glitter bomb, and that was it. And I'm pretty sure that it was the person that doxed me. I can't even call it doxing because it was more like they just Googled my name after I sent them my social media. But definitely something that was preventable if I had the foresight to think ahead a little bit. Not a rough upbringing. I had good parents, but I had some interactions with adults that weren't favorable during my formative years. And one of the main reasons that I kind of stuck with 4chan was because I viewed it as like community of people that were like depraved and fucked in the head, and I was kind of fucked in the head, so I was sort of like there was like a camaraderie of like mutual being fucked in the headedness, and I formed a connection off of that. And I thought that it was kind of neat that there were people that were also like dealing with their own demons, as edgy as that sounds. But even now sometimes I have self-destructive like times where I'll just shut myself off. Because of online classes, I've just been behind my computer all the time, so I'll be on my computer, and then when I'm not on my computer, I'm sleeping or I'm at work, and I just go into that cycle of only doing those things, not hanging out with friends, not seeing my girlfriend. I know that's like a way of like coping with being overwhelmed that started when I was a kid. When I was younger, it was like it was a way of like fighting being a social outcast, being left out of, like, I was the odd one out because I was dealing with serious things at home, so I would sit behind my computer and I would rather interact with people online that were way older than me because I thought I connected with them more than kids at school who were my age but mentally I did not have a rapport with. There was no deeper connection besides like, hey, did you watch that episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars? I mean, yeah, I did. You can see that. I would sit behind the computer and it would just be dread because there was a disconnect. But over time, I started feeling a little bit better, and I found my own friend group. Not only that, but I went through countless online friend groups. I made my own friends, experienced some stuff I didn't want to experience online. I experienced some stuff that was great. I kind of found my footing, and I think that even though it's probably not the best thing to be on when you're younger, there's a sense of community that forms, or used to form. I can't say if it's the same now. I felt more comfortable sometimes talking to complete strangers, which I would argue with them back and forth, and they would call me slurs and I would call them slurs. I would feel more comfortable talking to them than like people in my life because I didn't want to open up about the things that I was thinking about. Especially in my household, it was like I've got older parents, they don't really understand the internet, and they definitely don't understand what's going on in my head most of the time. I was also a dork in real life, so most kids were kind of thrown off by, that's the computer nerd. Browsing the internet was a way that I substituted genuine social contact that I would have been completely lacking in. Sorry if that rambled on for a little bit too long, or maybe got a little bit too deep or anything, but I haven't been on it in years. Like, maybe once in a while I'll go on to see what's up, but I'm not going there for my content. It's mainly rage bait. I'm not going on the website to make myself upset. I have Twitter to do that. If I really want to make myself angry, I go on Twitter. I'm trying to make myself like slightly angry, not like radicalize myself into a spiral.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
Ooh, that is a loaded question. It's easy to label people as inferior or less than, in whatever way you want to put it. Someone that you're arguing with and you hold an opinion contrary to, and it's very easy to fall into your own like box of opinions and not change. It's something that you have to do, that I learned over the years, is you have to take a step back, think about the person that you're interacting with. You need to remember that there is a real person behind the text that you're getting and the text that you're sending. I have definitely said things in the past that have hurt other people online, and that 100% has affected them in real life. We look at someone not as a person with opinions, but as a product of a opinion. I don't want to pull like the, oh well, we all just need to get along, but you need to remember that there's a face behind everything that you're sending, and they can take those things extremely critically. I view my interactions, like, for example, with someone like Chris Chan, going all the way back. It may have been funny when I was in elementary school sending extremely rude messages, but years have gone on past that then, and I completely understand how someone can disintegrate personally from that much hate over time. I've known people that have taken their life because of constant hate campaigns, being targeted by internet stuff, and it definitely hurts to see people go just because a group of people decided to focus a mean joke on them for a little bit too long. So, as cliche as it might sound, view other people as people, especially when you're about to send that message that is just a bunch of insults and slurs and every other horrible thing that you could possibly type. Just think about the fact that that could be someone that you're affecting on a level beyond, oh haha, this is funny, or oh fuck you, this is edgy. I guess that's all I've got for now.